lot of good folks in Garden.
Okay, hello and welcome to episode 3 of Cultural Osmosis, the show where we talk about a different pop culture fandom every episode to further your knowledge and so you don't have to. My guest this week is the wonderful Ben Chapman, and we're going to be talking about the cultural phenomenon of Avatar: The Last Airbender. So why don't you wave to the camera there, Ben? So the first question I always like to ask all my guests, just to get the ball rolling, is why do you like this show more than other shows? Like, why is this one of your favorite fandoms, would you say?
Well, I remember, as probably most people who started to watch it once it came back out on Netflix, and it's a good story. They do such a great job with the characters, and I know it's one of like the only animated shows to win something on character development, which is pretty cool. It's just got such strong story and strong characters, and you really see those characters change throughout the entire series.
Oh, it's just such a good time, and like I feel like everybody grew up with it. Like I have yet to meet a college student who did not grow up with it and has not praised it endlessly when we talk about it. You just finished the show rewatching it like a week ago, didn't you?
Yep. So once I found out it came out on Netflix, it was like move out time. And so I was like packing up things, and Lakota and I were watching it in our living room. I remember I stayed up until like 3 o'clock one morning, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's 3 o'clock. I probably should go to sleep.
It's such a good show. Yeah, this episode's very topical because as soon as it came out on Netflix, like it's all anybody's talking about. They're talking about it like it's Stranger Things and it's a new show, but it came out in February of 2005, and I'm like, it's always been good. You people need to calm down.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize how old it was until I was looking up something about the cast or whatever, and I was like, oh my gosh, 2005?
It's like ridiculous. But I see you're 3 in the morning and I raise you one. Me and a friend attempted to marathon the entire series in one sitting. We did the math, and it would take about 21 hours to watch all 3 seasons. I made it to hour 18. We like 2 episodes into the Fire Nation series, and I physically was like, we have to stop or I'm gonna die. But I made it 2/3 of the way in one sitting before it got ridiculous.
I remember seeing you post on Snapchat that you were doing that, and I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I had a way to watch this.
Yeah, I had the whole collection right here, which um, but my next question, before we get into the serious questions at the second half of the show, my next question I always like to ask my guests, I'm sorry, just so the audience knows who they're dealing with. Who is your favorite character?
Oh man, I've got to say it's probably Uncle Iroh. He's just so insightful, uh, and even though he has the past of being a general in the Fire Nation, he it seems as though throughout the series he's about peace. And I kept asking myself, like, how is this guy Fire Nation and an ex-general in the Fire Nation? Like,
Hmm.
he seems to want like harmony and peace. And the biggest thing that I remember is it's when they're doing the siege of the North Pole, and the one General Zhao tries to kill the moon, and Uncle Iroh stops him. I'm like, see, like I don't get
General
how.
General Zhao tries to kill the moon out of context. That's hilarious, but yeah, yeah, I get what you mean.
It's just like, how's this guy who's on the side of like harmony between the spirits and the elements? How is he ever fighting for the Fire Nation?
Well, then once again, we continue the tradition of having the same favorite character. I agree entirely. There's going to be some spoilers, by the way, audience, but the show is meant for people who have seen the series already or are not planning on it. So, but yeah, like he's like this ex-Fire Nation general who is a good guy from the start. It's like what I've always loved about him, and like several times he's telling like other Fire Nation people, we need to learn from the other nations, not kill them. Like he's like, half of my firebending techniques I've learned from waterbenders. Like we need to like enjoy these other cultures. And then like he was a general in the Fire Nation army, and then his son died before the show started, and ever since that point, he's been like a good guy. So that's like by the time the show starts, he's like a good guy. He just happens to be working for the Fire Nation, and he's so funny yet is always saying stuff that's really wise, and he's like I think honestly the best character.
Yeah, I remember as a kid thinking that he was just this kind of odd old man, and then watching it through this time, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is he's spitting fire right here.
He's such a good character. Him and in like this third season where he gets like a six-pack.
I wish we could have seen more of that, honestly. Like he
Yeah,
disappeared for like 5 or 6 episodes, it seemed like, and I was like, oh come on, I want to see Buff Iroh.
right. Like he's in prison. He gets arrested in the third season, and then he just gets jacked, and he gets like a six-pack, and he's like, I'm gonna single-handedly take down the Fire Nation, and then you never see what happens. It just cuts to him like 5 episodes later, and he's like, yeah, I've been fighting people this whole time. You didn't see that? But yeah. So I'm glad we agree. I would say my second would probably be Zuko, but he takes a while to get good.
Yeah, I kept like with Zuko, the first, I don't know, season and a half to 2 seasons, I was just like, why are you the way that you are? Your uncle's trying to help you. You're just being absolutely rude to him. You leave him, you betray him. It's just like he's the only one that's there for you no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Your father's only going to accept you if you kill the Avatar. So,
See, that's my only thing is Zuko would be my favorite, but he does not become a good guy until literally the last season. It takes 2 seasons. You have to see through him being a bad guy for 2 seasons before he gets to be a good character, but that's the only reason. But with that said, I think it's time to move on to the next segment. This is the best worst segment where we talk about several things. So I guess my first question is, do you think, the single best episode for you?
this was honestly tough, especially just watching them all through. And I think I have to go with the Tales of Ba Sing Se. It follows the stories of different, at most 2 characters, but most of the time it's just a solo adventure, really.
That's the one where it's like 4 different stories split into one episode. Okay.
Yeah, and you get to see Zuko actually have like a kind of normal life. He like goes on a date. But I like this one because of Uncle Iroh, and the meaning that it has behind it, because that's the last episode that the voice actor did before he died. And so like him singing that song was like, I think if I remember right, it was the last thing recorded that he did to his son. So I that has a lot of meaning behind it too. But I think it was just interesting to see all the different characters when they're alone. You get to see Aang's love for animals, even though he's terrible at like animals don't like him, but he's able to get the zoo on the outside of the city to where they can have more space. And I just think it's a pretty good story because they tell 4 pretty coherent stories in 30 minutes, which is insane.
It's very impressive to tell 4 stories in 30 minutes. I also like the segment of Detective Momo almost finding Appa, because Appa's, for the entire second season, Appa is kidnapped, and Momo almost cracks the case in like a span of 10 minutes, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, the Appa episodes when he's like trying to find his way back were so heartbreaking.
Oh my god, it's so sad. I can't watch season 2. It's just so sad because Appa gets kidnapped, and then they keep cutting to him, and he's like being abused, and like he barely makes it back to Aang, and Aang's really like angsty the entirety of season 2 because Appa's kidnapped. It's just a heartbreaking season, and I can't handle it.
Yeah.
With that said, I would say my favorite episode is the Cave of Two Lovers. uh, Simply because those hippies are the funniest thing I have ever seen, and I will argue with anybody about it. It's also the first episode that Aang and Katara finally are like flirting with each other, and it's like maybe we should be in a relationship, but also those hippies and the secret tunnel song.
Secret tunnel through the mountains. Secret tunnel. Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that Sokka is like so against them and gets stuck with them is great.
It's so funny because because Sokka hates the hippies, and he's the one when they get trapped. He's the one who's stuck with them the whole time. It's just comedy gold.
Hmm.
With that said, let's transition then. I didn't tell you to prepare for this one, so it's okay. But do you have like a worst episode, one that you just don't like very much?
Oh, geez. I definitely wouldn't be able to come up with a name.
That's fine. Like I didn't really prepare for this one. Like I said, I think any episode. It's the episode like right after the secret library where Aang is just really PO'd the entire time, and they're lost in the desert, and it's because Appa was just kidnapped. I think that like something like that. Just because that whole Appa being kidnapped storyline really is not my cup of tea.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. There's not anything else off the top of my head where I was just like, oh, I really don't like this episode.
So yeah, I would agree. It's not pretty much every episode's pretty good. Let's move on to the next thing. All right, I gotta ask, what is the best, if you could, what is the best element you would bend if you could be a bender?
I want to say water. I don't
Okay.
know. I think it's cool that they can like freeze it and stuff too. And like if you're special within the water bending community, you can heal people, which is pretty cool.
Can also
And like
blood bend, yeah.
yeah, blood bend. I don't know if I'd want to do that. That's a little evil and dark, but yeah, it's just and some of the stuff that Katara is able to do at like towards the
Hmm.
end, that's pretty cool.
It's
Uh,
crazy, yeah. You can also bend plants, which is crazy. Like there's
yeah.
like swamp bender. I think water benders are a little overpowered. You can pretty much do anything.
The only thing is that you need a source of water, but like
Yeah.
I think Katara does a really good job of. She always has that canister of water that she's able to pull from. So
Hmm. I would agree, yeah. For me personally, thinking about it, as a kid, I was like, waterbending be cool. As an adult, thinking about it, like I'd be an earthbender. Like you can make a house, like you can like move mountains. You could pretty much do anything. Sculpt an island. Like earthbenders, like strongest. You could do whatever you want. I would probably be an earthbender. You got to be barefoot all the time, but that's a small price to pay.
yeah, and if you're good enough, like Toph, you're able to metal bend, which is pretty cool too. Like
Hmm.
she invents a whole new bending, which is insane.
That is crazy. Have you seen The Legend of Korra?
What was that?
Have you seen The Legend of Korra?
No, I need to. That's
Okay.
that's on my next watch list.
Um, well, in that one, they invent a new thing called lava bending, which is earth bending because lava is just melted down rock. So there's a guy who like can literally make volcanoes, which is pretty interesting.
Hmm.
So can do whatever. Well, there you go. Now that that's out of the way, the next thing I would like to talk about. This is the very controversial segment in our TV episode. It's called Hot Takes. So I can go first if you want an example, but these are your single spiciest hot takes, controversial opinions about the show. Mine is upon rewatching the show and seeing The Legend of Korra, I really don't like Toph. Like as a kid, I thought she was fine, but as an adult, she is like a terrible person to all the other characters. She never gets redeemed. And then in The Legend of Korra, you find out that she pretty much got worse the older she got. So like I do not like Toph. That's my hot take. If you can handle it.
Okay, yeah, I can see it. I remember when she first comes in, I was just really annoyed with her, but I got more used to her, I guess, as it goes on. So, and she's like a really valuable part of the group too, I think. So, I guess I see where you're coming from,
Say,
but I don't have.
you're allowed to disagree, but it seems
Yeah,
like yeah.
I don't have disdain. Oh man, a hot take for me. Um, I would I would almost have to go with that. I really don't like Zuko as a character. I think those first two seasons really hit hard for me because there's so many times where he's just making the wrong choice. And I know that he's young, but he makes the wrong choice over and over and over again, and it's the same choice. Uh, and that's it. Just it bugs me so much. Now he does get better
Hmm.
in season 3, and he becomes a really good character. So it's tough, but just the
Hmm.
first two seasons really, just so many times I was like, "What are you doing? You are stupid."
It's almost like season 3 Zuko and season 1 Zuko are two different characters. Um, I can see what you mean. I disagree because his arc is so heartwarming in the end, and I think it's a very good commentary on how like pride is overrated. Because the whole reason he keeps making the wrong choice for the first two seasons is like his whole life is like I want to get my pride back, and then after like he fails for the 100th time, he's like, you know what? Maybe I wasn't cut out to be on the villain side. I'm gonna try being on the good guy side for once, and then he's like really good at it. But I get what you mean. It takes a while for him to be good. But season 3 Zuko is so fun though.
Yeah, and I'll say I love season 3 Zuko, but it's hard to get past. And I love the Uncle Iroh quote that's like, "Pride is not the opposite of shame; it's the source of it," or something like that. Uh, and yeah, that describes like perfectly what you said.
Yeah.
And his story arc is great. It's just 2 seasons of him being so stupid and making such bad decisions and continuously failing, and his uncle continuously accepting him back, and then he'll go off and leave his uncle again. That, like, and yeah, he does come back to him, but I was just like, come on, what are you
That's
doing?
that was way too hot of a take, Ben. I can't handle that. That's good. I guess the last thing I would have to say for hot takes would be um, this is just more like a minor gripe with the internet, but I'm a little mad about people just now recognizing that the show is good. Like I said, this is the very topical segment of the show, but it's like as soon as it came out on Netflix, people are literally making lists and stuff talking about it like it's a new Netflix original, and I'm like the show has literally been good and been around for 15 years and it's just now being talked about and people are acting like it's like this new thing and it's cool to like it and it's like I've liked it since 2005. You need to calm down.
Yeah, yeah, I get that, and I think it's funny. I keep seeing memes about apparently they've had it in Europe for like ever available to stream, and so you keep seeing these like, oh yeah, America's like, oh yeah, Avatar: The Last Airbender, it's so good, and the Europeans like, where have you been?
Like honestly though, like that's more of like I have a gripe with the internet, but that's not the first time I've had a gripe with the internet, so
Won't be the last either.
it won't be the last. uh With that said, I think it's time for the final and most important segment, Popular Trends and Controversy. This is the segment where I bring up several points of argument within the fandom, and you'll tell me your impressions and what side you're on. So I'll go first. My first question, I'm disappointed in Ben because my first question was going to be about the Legend of Korra, um, which you have not seen, but if you need to borrow it. It's I was just gonna say with Avatar coming out on Netflix, there is a big debate about the Legend of Korra because it is very polarizing. I think 50% of people almost like it more, and 50% of people think it's terrible. I guess this is just information for you when you finally decide to watch it, but my first time going through the series, I liked it. It was fine enough. After I took 10 minutes to sit down and think about it, I really don't like it. It changes a lot of the established like mythos and stuff, and it does a lot of weird choices. That's just something for you to look about. I don't know what your thoughts about this show or what you've gleaned from other sources are.
I've just heard that I've heard more of there should have been a fourth season of Avatar than The Legend of Korra. That's pretty much what I hear most of.
I would agree. Like, I don't know why the fourth season of Legend of Korra is so bad. I almost didn't finish it, which is really curious to me because I wonder why Korra got 4 seasons, but Avatar there were like 3 is fine. It's just very curious. There's a lot of choices, like I said, that are interesting. But speaking of a 4th season, let's move on to the next popular point of talking. There is a very heavy rumor, I don't know how much fact there is in this, that ever since Netflix bought the rights to Avatar, they're going to produce a made-for-Netflix season 4. How would you feel about that?
It'd have to be done perfectly. I think because it's so far away from when the last episode aired, I just think you have to do it right, because otherwise you're just doing it for the money and for like the people to like come to you to watch it. And I think it'd be nice to have more content, but it's got to be quality. I don't want something just spat out there so that way people watch it. And I think it'd be really hard to do because like all the actors are older. I don't know how many of the writers are still actually work. Like 2008 was when it last aired. That's 12 years ago. Some of the writers might not even be working still, so I think it might be difficult to get something as quality as the first 3 seasons if they do something now.
Yeah, honestly, I agree with you in every point. Like, for them to make a 4th season would pretty much be 100% just to draw people to Netflix. Like, I didn't want to get Netflix, but then they made a made-for-Netflix season 4 of Avatar, so I guess I have to get it now kind of attitude. And then I feel like the voice actors are so much older now, you'd almost have to, like, follow them as, like, old men, you know? Like,
Yeah.
I just don't know what a 4th season would be, but this is a very heavy rumor. Like, there's several videos where people are like, Netflix is very heavily thinking about making a 4th season, and I don't know if it's a good idea.
I think I'd much rather see a very, very well done, high production live action, basically retelling of the animation. Like I'm talking like Mandalorian high quality,
Mm, mm.
just same story.
Speaking of live action, that was my next point. Have you seen the live action Last Airbender movie?
No, because I've heard that it's terrible, and I do not want to disgrace the name.
So bad. It's literally the entire first season from beginning to end, crammed into a 2-hour movie. Like, stuff happens so fast, and there's like 5-minute segments where it's like, yep, that was their version of the episode and stuff like that. It was just so bad.
So do you still meet like Suki and all that, or do they cut that stuff out?
You don't meet Suki, but literally everything else happens. Like, you meet, I think the princess who turns into the moon has like literally one scene with Sokka before she gets turned into the moon, because they're literally cramming an entire first season of a show, which is like 3-4 hours of content, into 2 hours. So like, you meet the I don't know if you remember the episode where the boy has to pretend he's not an airbender. Like, that's a 5-minute segment in the movie. Like, stuff just happens so fast because they're cramming it all into this movie.
I feel like if they wanted to do like the whole series, I feel like it would have been better to like break each season down to 2 and make 6. And
Yeah.
don't just cover stuff for 5 minutes. Just pick and choose what you want to include. but I feel like 5 minutes, like especially like one scene for the princess that
Hmm.
that's that takes
Yeah.
away all the emotion behind it.
And then the blue spirit's there for like 10 minutes. It's a very interesting time. I think the funniest part is that the director only made it because his daughter liked the TV show and he was doing it as a gift to her. And I can just imagine her being like, Dad, that movie was so bad.
Yeah, how old's the daughter? Is she like 8 and she's just gonna be fine with whatever movie gets put out, or is she like 20 and gonna be extremely upset that this is not a good representation of it?
I don't know, but I'd be a little mad at the
Yeah.
dad. With that said, the last point, I guess not the last point, there's two more, but I'd like to talk about, it's one of the most talked about on lists I've seen, most talked about um, just forgotten cliffhangers in TV history. Zuko's mom, that whole storyline. It's been talked about so much as like just cliffhangers that are never addressed because the last episode of the show is literally like Zuko kicks down the door and like he sits in front of his dad and he's like, "Where's my mom? I know you kidnapped her, but where is she?" And then it cuts away and they never talk about it again. And that was like a setup for like maybe a season 4 or something like that, and it's just never talked about again.
Yeah, if they do a season 4, that wouldn't be a bad plot to follow for it. Because yeah, that's a big cliffhanger. I remember being like, "Oh my gosh, this is the last episode," and they're bringing this up like right at the end of it. That
Yeah, like literally with like 2 minutes left in the episode, they bring that up. It's very frustrating.
yeah, that would have been, I don't know, that would have been nice to see at some point within the series because you kind of know what happened pretty early on. I think it's season 2 where they bring it up because that's where Azula comes in
Hmm.
and the flashbacks of that. Can we just talk about how she's crazy? Like,
Yeah, I was just about to say, let's make this the segment where we talk about how absolutely insane of a villain Azula is. Like, she comes on screen and I'm uncomfortable. Like, that's how good of a villain she is.
I don't remember if they teased it at the end of season 1 or if it was in the first episode of season 2 where the Fire Lord basically sends her to hunt down. And I just remember thinking, oh yeah, she's crazy. I remember this.
Like, she is like next level insane. Like, it's like that thing where like she she acts like she's really innocent, but like in a bad way, and then like she'll just stab everybody in the back, and then like in the third season when she like becomes Fire Lord pretty much, or like second in command, she just goes absolutely insane with power, and like she's very unhinged.
Yeah, and then you have May and Ty Lee
Hmm.
like finally stand up to her, and I was just like, okay, good, because I really like Ty Lee. Like she's just kind of this
was she the
upbeat,
was she the acrobat?
yeah,
Yeah.
and she's always like super upbeat, and then she like totally blocks someone's chi and makes them to where they can't bend, and she's doing this all with like this almost, it's not maniacal, it's like an innocent smile as if she doesn't know what she's doing but she knows what she's doing.
Yeah, Ty Lee was an interesting character because she was like, I'm not fighting the Avatar because I'm evil. I'm fighting it because I'm bored and I'm friends with Azula. So like, I'm just gonna have fun with it, which is like the weirdest motivation to do something, but it was pretty funny.
And I think it's like one of the first times that they meet the gang, and I can't remember if she was saying it about Aang or Soka, right?
Sokka.
Sokka. Yeah, I keep saying that wrong. But Sokka, but she's like, oh, he's kind of cute. And I was just like, this is kind of like a game to her. Like,
Hmm.
this isn't war. She's just kind of having fun.
I really liked May. Like, um, I guess her character, she doesn't really have, she's just kind of like goth, and she's Zuko's girlfriend, and like her entire motivation for hunting down the Avatar is like she just wants to like she's mad at Zuko because like he broke up with her to hunt the Avatar or whatever. I think that was a pretty interesting character motivation.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Azula's crazy. I think Fire Lord Ozai is also interesting. How they did the thing where you don't see his face for like the first 2 seasons is like just builds up his presence. I don't know if you ever noticed that, but like it just builds up his presence of like you do not want to mess with this guy.
Yeah, I remember Lakota asked me, like, why haven't they shown his face? And I'm just like, well, think about like as a kid. Like it humanizes someone as soon as you see their face. So if you see them so many times without, it just makes them much more menacing.
Mm-hmm. Like I never even noticed that until it was pointed out to me. I was just like, yeah, he's very intimidating. It was pointed out to me like a week ago. Did you know he's voiced by Mark Hamill?
Yeah, I saw that like right before I started my rewatch. I was like, oh my gosh, really?
Never noticed that. I did not know that Luke Skywalker was like this terrible villain that haunted my childhood the whole time. Yeah, that's crazy. Also, but to get back to Zuko's mom, I think it further supplements. There's literally a line in Legend of Korra where Korra walks up to like a 70-year-old Zuko, and it's literally like, yeah, that whole thing with my mom, man, what an adventure that was. Anyway, so like they literally make a joke about it in the Legend of Korra about how they never addressed the mom storyline ever again, and it's just really frustrating.
Yeah, especially because they acknowledge it. Oh, that'd be.
Yeah. All right. I gotta ask the cabbage cart guy. What's your stance, and is he justified in being mad about his cabbages?
I like him. I think he's funny, mainly because I didn't remember him specifically. So when I did my rewatch and that first cabbage thing happened, I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna happen like 20 more times, isn't it? And I think sometimes he's justified, sometimes he's not.
That man just loves his cabbages.
Yeah. I
I
saw a
think
meme where it was like all the characters from Avatar and it like lists their motivation or something. And then at the end it's just him and it's my cabbages.
I think that's the single funniest running joke. Like you said, like so many times. Like it's not every episode. It's like every like 15 episodes. They'll just run into the cabbage guy and completely destroy his business by accident. And he's like, these kids.
And I think you get it like you get two not back-to-back episodes, but you get two like pretty close together, and I want to say it's when they're in Ba Sing Se, and like I was just like, oh, wasn't expecting that so soon.
I gotta love the cabbage guy. My last point, I learned this from watching a video recently, but it's kind of given me mixed feelings. Basically, I'm paraphrasing very, very badly, and I'm sure, a lot of other reasons. But basically, to summarize, the reason Danny Phantom ended is because The Last Airbender came out. What are your thoughts on that? I don't know if you were a Danny Phantom fan. I know I was a diehard Danny Phantom fan, and learning like a month or two ago that The Last Airbender is the reason that it kind of ended, it was a little sad to me. I don't know what your stance is.
I gotta say, I didn't watch Danny Phantom as religiously as Last Avatar or The Last Airbender.
The Last
But
Avatar.
it was a show that I'd watch when it was on.
Mhm.
And I don't really remember a ton from it. It is one that like I kind of want to watch again just to remember like, oh yeah, well this is why I like the show. But I think it's sad that Danny Phantom had to end, but I really enjoy Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I think it's just such a good show. If it means that another good show has to end, it's sad, but at the same time, I Last Airbender, so I would take that.
I would say, yeah, I would agree. If it was like a worse show came out, I would be upset. But the fact that like it's like that old like Danny Phantom ran so the Last Airbender could run, or like the other way around. I messed that up, but you know what I mean. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's like if Legends of Korra it ended, you would probably be a lot more upset, right?
Yeah, I would say so. But with that said, is there anything else you would like to mention? Any aspects of the show or anything? Just throw that out there.
I mean, like I said earlier, I just think it does such a great job of storytelling. It's seen as a cartoon, and it was, I mean, it was meant for kids, but some of the scenes you can tell, like, it's also meant for adults. And I think that they do a show that adults will enjoy and probably under children will. And I just think that they do such a good job of making it to where you can come back 12 years later and still enjoy it.
Say, the thing I tell everybody is that season 1 is a kids show and season 3 is a show for adults, and I really do stand by that. Like season 1 is very much like we're gonna go penguin sledding, and there's these stormtroopers called the Fire Nation, and they attack people and they're bad. But then season 3 is when it gets to be like every episode is about like philosophy and meditation and like what it means to be a good person and letting go of your pride, and it's such like a relevant adult show that it's so weird that it started as a kids show.
Yeah, and you even have, I think it's season 3 where Sokka gets trained with the sword, and like that scene at the like big climax of it is they're fighting because they told him that they were Water Nation and that it's the Avatar, and then you find out at the end that the guy's like, I train anyone from any nation because like the art of the sword doesn't belong to anyone. And then you later find out that he's part of the White Lotus, and it makes total sense.
Yeah, I really liked Sokka's master episode. I thought it was going to be the episode where he finally learns water bending, but you know, swords are cool too.
And he got a sword out of a meteorite.
Yeah, it's super cool. I want that sword.
I want to say that they go back and find it because he drops it in either the last episode or second to last episode. I want to say that they go back and find it, but
I personally want to believe that. I know they don't, because he's on a blimp and he drops it off the blimp, and he's like, goodbye sword, and then he goes on fighting, which is really sad because I liked that sword, but it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah.
Really fast. Do you think Sokka was better with the moon spirit or was he better with Suki?
Oh man, I feel like you see him more with Suki, and especially in season 3, you kind of see how they fit well together. And so I gotta say Suki.
I really like this. I really love the screenshot where it's Sokka and Suki making out, and in the background is the moon, is the full moon looking at them. Because if you don't know, in season 1, Sokka's girlfriend is turned into the moon. I know that sounds weird out of context, but please trust me, it makes sense.
And he moves on pretty quickly. Like, yeah, they didn't know each other all that long, but I mean, it's a matter of months before he's like back to kind of flirting and actually like that's from winter. It's either winter or spring into before the summer solstice. Really,
He moves on pretty fast.
it's a bit after, but
Yeah, he moves on pretty fast, doesn't he? But with that said, I think we have talked for about 50 minutes now. I think, unless you have anything more you want to say, I think that concludes our show on Avatar: The Last Airbender.
thanks for having me on. It was really fun talking about the show with you.
Yeah, thanks for coming. And if you don't know anything about The Last Airbender, now you do.